So you try to bring something up and your partner goes quiet. You push a little bit harder and they tend to step back. So you follow, but they shut down completely. Now you're fighting about the fight, not even the original issue anymore.
Or you're on the other side. They bring something up and something in you just closes. You need a minute. They need an answer now. And it escalates before you know what happened.
So if that's your marriage, this episode is for you, even if it just happens sometimes. So welcome back to Evolve Marriage. I'm Eric McDougall, certified master relationship coach.
And I'm Kate. Today, we're starting a 4-part series on the relationship dances, the patterns that keep couples stuck even when they love each other.
Yeah, each dance has two specific stances, one that you do and one that your partner does. And paired together is what creates the disconnection cycle. So by the end of this series, you won't just know your own pattern, you're going to know how you fit into the relationship dance that keeps you stuck in your marriage. So let's get into the first dance. So the first dance is one that we know a lot.
Yeah, it's the one we tend to do the most.
Yeah. So it essentially is this kind of pursuer distancer, right? The pursuer often tries to control the situation, tries to create closeness, essentially tries to regulate by using the other person,
Yes.
right? And then the distancer is the person who tends to avoid, right? Maybe they're conflict avoidant. Maybe the tension is not good for them. Maybe there's even like some discomfort around being known or too much closeness.
Yeah, and what happens is the pursuer tends to like to control the situation. Usually when you start pursuing, when you start controlling a situation, you're afraid, you're feeling out of control. Something is probably not feeling right inside. So you're like, if I manage the situation, I'm going to feel better.
Yeah, so they're feeling insecure, right? There's distance to them. Maybe they're not feeling as close as they could be. Maybe they're making up stories in their head about, how their partner's kind of moving away. So from that insecurity, they get a little bit uncomfortable. The tension rises, the anxiousness rises, right? A lot of people in this camp tend to fall into that anxious attachment style. And so what do? They want to create closeness. They want to move towards it. And they do this in all kinds of different ways, right? They're maybe constantly hovering around their partner. They're constantly checking in on their partner. They're constantly pursuing sex, connection, dating, attention. What they are looking for is some form of closeness when they feel dysregulated. And the avoider is a little bit different.
Yes, most
Right?
definitely. The distance that can be caused by an avoider is usually done out of self-protection. So what happens with an avoider is they're trying to stay comfortable. It's obviously like everyone's number one priority is to feel comfortable. So as the controller is trying to feel comfortable by getting back to baseline, by controlling and, managing the situation, the avoider is trying to get back to feeling comfort by avoiding completely, by creating distance, by maybe not bringing things up or maybe not following through on things they said they would do because they're trying to stay comfortable. And for somebody who's more controlling or somebody who has a different type of dance, that might seem like it's indifference. It might seem like they don't care. But on the contrary, it's not that they don't care. They're just trying to protect themselves.
Yeah. And I think so much of this happens in these cycles of disconnection, right? These dances is both partners are feeling some sort of tension. Sometimes it's the first partner that brings it up for whatever reason. That creates tension within the marriage. And then each partner has a different way of dealing with that tension. One is trying to pursue, the other one is trying to avoid. And we know that, the more in those moments, let's say typically I'm the controller in our narrative. So that's kind of me in my scenario. So whenever I feel insecure, I try to push for closeness. I go, I engage, I want to talk, I want to figure things out, I want to express myself, but also I want to know what's going on for you, right? And sometimes that inquiry can bring tension to you.
Yes, because I have this idea that your closeness is you trying to get something from me or you're trying to, manipulate a situation to get a certain outcome. So right away, my shields go up, my barriers go up, and I go into like distancing myself and avoiding. And the further I distance myself, the more Eric pushes. And the more he pushes, the further I pull. So it becomes exactly like Eric is talking about. this dance
Mm.
of the push and pull dance, the controller versus the avoider, and we're going back and forth like this. He pushes for connection, I pull for avoidance and comfort.
Yeah, and I think long term in relationships, what often happens is we've seen this in our relationship as well, where there's times when I learn to essentially manage my own sense of anxiousness, and it doesn't mean that I'm doing good or feeling good. But what it does mean in moments when I'm feeling insecure is in those moments, which a lot of listeners who are typically in pursuit might relate to, is I've actually just decided not to engage because I'm afraid that the small amount of connection we do have is going to disappear. And so you actually get in this place where you're living out of fear and these kind of crumbs of attention, right, that you're getting, these tiny little bits, you're like, okay, that's good enough. And I don't want to do anything to mess that up.
Right.
And so it's not now what's happening is that the bar for your relationship is lowering, right? And now maybe in those moments, you as the avoider, you can kind of give your experience, but it might seem like you're comfortable,
Mm.
right? So I see a lot of partners out there like, well, my partner seems fine with it. But the partner who's avoiding is not fine, right? They're also experiencing a sense of loneliness at times. Maybe you can
Mhm.
talk about that, but they just don't know how to engage either, right? Because oftentimes what happens is when you engage, I'm like, oh, this is my moment. And then
Yeah.
I jump in, and then that can now lead to overwhelm for you, which is part of why you're avoiding it as well.
Absolutely, and I think for me as, like, the avoider, it does get lonely because I avoid talking about things because I don't necessarily wanna be the first one to bring things up. I mean, it's not healthy, but I have kind of relied on Eric to be the one who brings things up. Like, when he's unhappy enough, he'll talk about it. Like, if we haven't had sex in a while, Eric will bring it up eventually. Like, I don't have to do that because that's kind of what happened. We've kind of gotten in that habit of push-pull, right? Like, when Eric brings something up, I'm like, "Oh, there it is. Finally, good. He brought it up. So now I know I have the information." So from there, I don't even feel like a conversation is needed because I've just kind of been waiting for him to bring this up. So if he's like, "Wow, we haven't had sex in a while, like I'm feeling kind of disconnected, I'm feeling lonely." However he brings it up, I'm like, "There it is. I've been waiting for this information. Okay, so now we're both feeling the same. Let's not have a conversation about it. Let's just move on and,
Yeah, let's just
like,
fix this.
let's just fix
Yeah.
this.
You're like,
Let's
I'll just
just
have
fix
sex with
this."
you and then that'll be great.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And in those moments, part of you is like, well, I've been feeling lonely too, but I just haven't said anything about it because I didn't want it to be a big thing and be uncomfortable and raise tension.
Exactly. So I think as an avoider, I also fall into these like bad habits in our relationship where I just wait for you to kind of fix everything or bring everything up. And if you don't bring it up, I do get this internal like frustration of like, well, is he not noticing we're not having sex? Is he not noticing we haven't gone out on a date in a while? Like, why isn't he bringing it up? And that makes me, yes, I'm already angry about the fact that we haven't gone on out on a date in a while, but it also makes me angrier because now I'm realizing like, wow, okay, he's not even bringing it up, and he usually brings these things up.
And I think this is where marriages end up in a place that can get really dangerous, right?
Mhm.
Because this cycle, it can get amplified, right? Because what ends up happening is one partner's living in their head, and so is the other partner. And so they're no longer actually engaging with each other. They're engaging with the version of their partner they have in their head. There's so many individuals, couples that I've talked to where it's like, well, I want to do that, but then he would do this. And then so I'd
Right.
have to do that. And then he would do that. And they're not even engaging with their partner anymore. They're just engaging with this version that they have in their head. And because they're in those moments, they're trying to get what they want, right? Which is part of it. You're like, I want this thing. But that's not the priority because the priority is going to be to avoid discomfort.
Mhm.
That's a lot of people's priority. So
Mhm.
if your priority is to avoid discomfort, well, you're doing what makes most sense in these scenarios, which is to have this kind of flatlining relationship where nothing ever talks about that could ever be uncomfortable,
Yep.
where you're avoiding all kinds of conversations, where you're not willing to get help, right? Because your priority is not to have a great relationship. Your priority is to not be uncomfortable.
Right.
And it is important to, essentially understand and accept that if you want to grow through this, you have to learn to get uncomfortable. And this is where I see a lot of individuals and couples get kind of stuck, which is I'm willing to get uncomfortable, but in order to do that, I need my partner to do X, Y, and Z,
Mm.
right? So I need a guarantee if I'm going to get uncomfortable. I'm not willing to just get uncomfortable for the sake of my own needs, for the sake of my own marriage, for the sake of my own relationship. I need there to be an agreement that we're in this together no matter what.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not moving.
Right.
And that's kind of what keeps it stuck. The other thing is, and maybe you want to talk about this, is, sadly, something that not a lot of people talk about directly, which is it is much easier to avoid discomfort now in our everyday life through social media, through
Mhm.
scrolling, through individuals' use of pornography through alcoholism, right?
Right.
And so a lot of times what happens is this discomfort comes up, and before we had all these distractions, we probably had to do something about it,
Yeah.
right? We're like, "Oh, well, I don't really feel good. We haven't been connected. I should probably talk about this."
Yeah, and I would say the problem even goes further than that. I think sometimes by the time you realize this is a problem, because maybe you decide, okay, you know what? I've been on social media for too long. I'm on my phone every night. I'm going to get off my phone for like a week. By the end of that week, you're like, what has happened to my marriage? Where is my husband? Like, we don't even talk to each other. We haven't kissed all week. And you start realizing once you remove those distractions, and only then is when you realize that, wow, we're really disconnected. But when you have all these things in place that are keeping you busy, that are keeping you distracted, that are keeping you, seeing life through maybe like rose colored glasses, like, oh, things are good, things are good.
Yeah.
We sit beside each other in bed every night. And
We call it like avoiding the truth, right?
yes.
It's so easy to avoid the truth of a situation by distracting yourself, by being too busy or not enough time or waiting for the right day or scrolling online, etc.
Yeah, and it's almost like society's made it okay for us to have these distractions. It's normal for people to be on their phones every night. It's normal that I'm so exhausted because I kept myself busy all day that I just need to come home and watch, endless hours of TV. But what happens then is I'm not realizing that my marriage in the background is slowly dying. My disconnection and my distance, that is the distance and the disconnection that is growing between me and my partner, is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the problem is, the bigger that distance gets, the harder it is to like get that back together, to find that middle ground where you're like, okay, like we need to work on this again.
Yeah. And I think there's another problem here I want to
Mhm.
jump in, which is this idea of insight and information, right? We see this in so many couples, so many individuals. We've been like this in our marriage. I know I certainly was, where I thought because I had the insight, because I was reading books, because I was listening to exactly shows like this, I was like, I know what's going on, right? I have the insight. I understand what I'm doing. I understand what my partner's doing, and I have the knowledge. A big part of the problem with that, and this is a big part of when I talk about my coaching, like insight is a spectator sport, right? Like insight alone doesn't do anything to create change in real life. So I could know exactly what the dynamic is. I could psychoanalyze myself. I could psychoanalyze Kate. I could know it all. But in the end, if I'm not willing to have a true conversation that might be uncomfortable, that might be clunky at first, that might be weird and kind of don't know where it goes, things aren't going to change. And I think this is where so many people now in the information age, they kind of get lost in this, right? I mean, how many of you people listening, right? We were like this. I listened to like all the podcasts or all this book for like 4 years before I actually did anything about it and actually changed it, right? I know people who are, they don't go to the gym, they don't exercise, but they know everything about nutrition, right?
Yeah.
And so what we want to get to here is really encourage the audience to start being okay with the clunkiness of reconnecting and opening yourself up because it is going to be vulnerable. It is going to
Mhm.
be weird. And in a society that champions perfection, right? That it should be perfect, should look like this, and I can't do it if I look ridiculous. I think what's happening now is we've stopped fighting for the things that mean a lot to us, which just leads to more avoidance, right?
Yeah, and I think we also avoid doing anything about this because that loop, that dance becomes so predictable. I kind of assume that if Eric talks about, if no, like Eric kind of assumes that if he brings something up to me, that it's going to cause, discomfort. So he chooses, I'm just not going to bring anything up. I decide that if I were to bring something up to Eric, that's too uncomfortable. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to wait. And when I avoid, really what I'm doing is just confirming exactly what Eric believes is, if I bring something up, Kate's going to retreat. Kate's going to abandon me. Even though it's not abandonment, even though it is just self-protection, what I'm doing is I'm showing Eric that when you bring something up, I am going to abandon you. I am going to leave you alone on your island, and we're not going to talk about this. So he's learned, before even saying anything, before even having anything done from this situation, it's just become this like automatic, like, I know that Kate's just going to avoid me. I have this like preconceived notion that like if Eric brings something up, it's going to cause a fight, it's going to cause discomfort. So both of us just kind of stay frozen in our sides.
Yeah, and I think the other part is, for you experiencing me, so much of what gets reconfirmed is when I come up to you with kind of a grievance or a complaint, and I say, "Hey, like, I'm feeling really disconnected to you. Like, you've been really busy. Things aren't jiving between us. We got to do something about this." To you, what that does is it reconfirms this idea of like, oh, like Eric's dissatisfied, he's
Yeah.
unhappy, I can't do anything about
He's
it.
mad. He's
Right,
mad at me.
right.
I failed.
Which
Yeah.
brings up kind of the conflict tension for you, which is like,
Mhm.
oh my God, what do you need? I kind of got to back away, right? Which
Mhm.
leads to more of the avoidance. So again, like if you're the pursuer and you're constantly going to your partner, complaining, telling them what they need to do, telling them how they need to change, all of that is like window dressing. It's all surface level stuff. You need to be able to connect to what's below the surface, right? So oftentimes when I see people talk, and we like do this in session, right? Which is they're unloading, right? We haven't been doing this and what's going on and all that stuff. Well, there's something underneath that. There's a hidden desire, there's a wound, there's some insecurity there. And you need to be able to stop in those moments and talk about what's actually going on, right? You need to be able to use I statements. You need to talk about the need and you need to express it to your partner and then allow them to receive that, right? Without, I see so many people, it's like, well, how do I get them to do what I want? It's not enough for me to just express myself. It's like, well, that's what you have to do. You have to express yourself and you have to give your partner the opportunity to connect with you if they want. But you do not want a relationship where you're controlling your partner to do what you want. That is not a healthy dynamic in relationship.
Yeah, so just knowing that you're in that push-pull cycle, just knowing that like, okay, this is what Eric and I do. Eric pushes, I pull, that's it. That's our cycle. It's not enough. It's not enough to do something about it. When you're in the push-pull cycle, there are some very specific things that you can do to get you out of that.
Yeah, and so we talked about what the controller can do. Now, kind of name what's actually going on below the surface, use I statements, name the need. What about the avoider, right?
Yeah, for the avoider, I mean, for me, it's I understand that I can't give an answer right away. But what I need to do is I need to tell Eric, I need to voice to Eric, hey, I need a break. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling saturated. I need to take some time. Take that time and move away. But before moving away and before saying, I'm gonna go and whatever, it's very important that I use I statements, very important that I talk about myself. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling a little oversaturated. So I'm going to take X amount of time and then I will come back and I want to continue talking about this because I know how important this is to you. But I just can't take in all the information that Eric wants to give me in that moment at that time. So it's okay for me to have to break it up into bite-sized pieces or to express to him what it is that I need. When I come back, can we just really focus on this one specific thing? Because I feel like this is a huge problem and I need to know, like, take it in bite-sized pieces.
Yeah, and I think that's so much of the rep, right, that we're recommending to you. It's not about doing 10,000 things right now. It's, if you find yourself, you're like, yeah, pursuer distancer dynamic is really common in our relationship. Okay, well, if you're the pursuer, here's your rep. Be open and honest about what you need, use I statements, and allow your partner to respond. And like you mentioned, if you're the avoider, make sure that you're saying, hey, I'm a little bit overwhelmed. This is important to me. I got to take 10. I will come back to talk about this after. And so again, it's not about like, hey, I'm not abandoning you. And you can even say that,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes Kate will even say, hey, I'm having trouble processing this. I care about you. This means a lot to me. Right now, I'm just totally flooded. I don't want to respond from this place. So I'm
Mhm.
going to come back in 10 minutes. And that's just the rep, right? The more Kate does that and the more she comes back, the more I feel secure in our relationship. And the same thing, the more I use just, my own expression, talk about my needs instead of just complaining and trying to get Kate to do stuff, the more she feels safe in our relationship.
Yes, and what's important there is when the controller is being abandoned,
Sure.
quote unquote, because that's
Yeah.
kind
When
of what you're
distance is being
feeling.
created.
When
Yeah.
the distance is being created, it's important that the controller respects that the controller has enough trust in their partner that they will come back and that this conversation will continue. But as much as it's important for the avoider to come back, it's just as important for the controller to respect that distance and stop talking when the avoider is asking for it. Because there have been moments where I try to pull away. I'm like, okay, Eric, like I'm saturated. And oh, you're just gonna walk away now. And that doesn't help. So that doesn't make me trust that it's okay for me to take some time. But the reason that that's happening is most likely because I have in the past said, oh, I'll come back in 10 minutes and then I don't come back. Or I come back in 10 minutes and I try to pretend like everything's fine and we don't go back to having that hard conversation. And because of that, Eric doesn't trust that we can get through this together. he just thinks, "Oh, she's gonna abandon me, and then we're not gonna talk about it again," because that's what I have proven to him time and time again. So it's all about building trust. It's all about doing the reps and coming back, and it might be that, "Oh, hey, I'll come back in 10 minutes to talk about it." 10 minutes goes by, I'm not ready. Well, it's very important for me to go up to Eric and to be like, "Hey, I know I said I'm coming back in 10 minutes. Like, I'm still feeling super flooded about this. I'm gonna maybe need like 24 hours, but we will talk about this. You're not alone in this. Please trust me, I will be back." And to actually stick to that commitment.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the idea that the pursuer has to self regulate, has to give their partner the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's the clunky part, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I want to, but I can't because of the past. It's like, well, you have to learn to do that or else you're not going to move forward because
And that's the discomfort you need to
that's
learn
right.
to sit in, just as it's uncomfortable for me to pull away because it's uncomfortable for me to say, "Hey, I need some time," because one, I don't trust that I can come back to this because every part of me is like, "I don't want to talk about this anymore. I want to
Hmm.
run away and go hide under a blanket." But I know that that's not healthy for my relationship. So when you choose love over discomfort, when you choose each other over discomfort in your relationship, so much can happen.
Yeah. So next week, we're going to be talking about the second dance, which is all about walking on eggshells. There is a little bit of controlling in that as well. So we're going to go into that. And again, if you did find this beneficial for you, you can subscribe to the channel. You can give us a rating and review on Apple or Spotify. The last thing is if you want more help around this, if you want to go deeper, you can grab our connection blueprint. It's in the show notes. It's just a guide that gives you very specific tools to use in those hard moments that are going to be super helpful for you and for your relationship. And if you want to talk to me directly, you can book a map call. Really easy to do. It's a 45-minute call where we can talk a little bit about what's going on for you and how I can help. See you in the next one.
Bye.